Good afternoon. This is Anand Sharma from CXOTV.news, a flagship brand under the umbrella of Techplus Media. A warm welcome and hello to everybody from Marketing Mondays. This is the second year of webinar series titled Marketing Mondays from Techplus Media. Well, you can watch all the past events on demand at www.cxotv.news. This week, we wanted to keep our focus on partners and alliances marketing and how to bring the multiplier 2x, 3x, 4x, or YX effect to the go-to-market programs. We have a panel of very eminent marketeers today. Someone who's currently heading senior position in the industry, as well as somebody who took the entrepreneurial leap after successful stint at corporates. I thank them for taking out time from the busy schedules and joining us to share their wisdom. Well, without much ado, let me request the panelists for a quick self-introduction. Our first panelist is Ms. Lira Priyadarsani, and I'm just going by the order of their first names. Lira, welcome again. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Lira Priyadarsani, and the first thing to say is you will not find another Lira Priyadarsani in the world. You can search for it. So if you need to ever contact me, just type Lira Priyadarsani in Google and you'll find me. Having said that, okay, my credentials run back to almost 30 years, 28 or 29 years in advertising, marketing, strategy across the world. Okay, so I am an alumni from Ahmedabad, batch of 1993, much older than a lot of you who are listening in probably. Having worked in advertising marketing with a degree from Ahmedabad makes you work in every possible industry, from technology to FMCG to the vices. You know, I've worked on Bacardi, on mouth fresheners, on Rajnigandha, on, I mean, what have you? I mean, from all of that, and food and dog food and, you know, everything possible, okay, in between. So in that sense, what I'm going to speak to you is a combination of all the experience that I have across the years. For some people, it may seem a little um, not in, you know, because I've come from traditional advertising and gone into digital and technology in a very big way. So with the two hats of traditional marketing and digital marketing, the roles have just expanded. So it'll be interesting to hear from the listeners today how they would like to see marketing going forward. Okay, so today's specific topic, of course, is about alliances and partnerships, which we cannot all do without. And yeah, so that's about me.
Thank you. And Lira, that was fabulous background that you essentially gave. So thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. If you're watching from India, and this is Samir. My name, like Lira said, her is very, very common actually. There's so many Samirs spread across so many cultures, spread across so many religions actually. So it's pretty common. Best way to reach out to me is via LinkedIn. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to connect with you. A little bit about my background. I've been, I really like to start with where I was born and brought up. So I've been born and brought up in a country called Libya. I'm not sure if anyone of you have heard about it. It was in news for not so great reason, actually, but I came much before that. I came back much before that. I was born and brought up, did my schooling there, and then have been traveling across the country. I did my +2 in AMU, and then from there I moved to Allahabad, which is now Prayagraj, to do my engineering, and after that I moved to Christ University. It's Christ College is now Christ University, and I studied in the School of Business and Management in Bangalore. A great institution again. And then from there, I was in Chennai, Mumbai, Hyderabad, then back to Bangalore. I've been working, I started my career in sales, and I have that to retail sales, which is, in a BFSI segment. So, technically it was SBI Life. I was actually selling insurance, and that's like one of the toughest to start your career with, right? I mean, especially once you're out of your MBA. And after that, opportunity came within IBM, and I've been with IBM like for close to 14 years now. And I've done plethora of roles. Yeah, Lira. I mean, that's the expression people make when they hear about it. And I've done plethora of roles in IBM, but it's largely centered around ecosystem marketing, which is business partner marketing, which is alliance marketing, etc. But done enough number of roles within that organization. And currently, I'm actually leading the software marketing for ecosystem for business partners across Asia Pacific. So that's what I essentially do for my living at the moment.
Lira and Samir, I'm delighted and honored to host such an elite panel today. And being a panelist myself today, let me just give a quick introduction about myself. With some 20 years of work with companies like Hewlett Packard, Tech Mahindra, Accenture was my last stint. I took the entrepreneurial stint or leap, and that's where I am right now. So I hold my master's in computer applications as well as business management from XLRI. So, all right. So let me start shoot the questions which I love to do. Ida, the first one comes to you. Everybody talks about strategy, okay? And you know me, right? I always want to start with basics so that basics is understood. What is strategy? I can tell you that in my career of 21 years or so, perhaps the most misused word, because I've seen even few senior leaders quoting tactical and operational items as this is strategic. Okay, and in the hindsight, sometimes you miss out or overlook the strategy altogether. Over to you, Lira.
Whoa, what a big word that you've given me to start with, huh? And like I was saying, it covers so many things. I mean, and when you so let's talk about business strategy, okay, for today's session. The reason I was saying it's such a big word is when you hear about strategy, you first think about military strategy. You have Sun Tzu's Book of War, you've got Powell. So there are different books on military strategy, and people try and connect that with marketing and business and all of that. That is the first use of strategy that I actually learned about before I did my MBA, and then I started learning about what is strategy. See, in my understanding, okay, and I might be a little more expansive in the way I'm looking at it. It's about the approach. It's about a plan that you create to reach a particular goal. Now, without a goal, the strategy doesn't work. You cannot have a strategy without aiming to reach somewhere. A future that you have to find for yourself, somewhere you need to go, what do you need to do. So, like you said, because that word strategy is just thrown around lightly and anything becomes a strategy, let's talk about what strategy is not, because it helps. So first, you look at the stone and you start looking at where is the picture inside, right? You start removing the chips like Michelangelo's Pieta. Okay, you remove the chips and you could see the picture inside. So what is not strategy? So it is not an aspiration. So a vision or a goal is not a strategy. And I have noticed that a lot of senior leaders talk about a vision or a goal as a strategy, which is like, I want to be a pioneer in something, I want to be number one. These are not strategies. That's a goal. Okay. Then you have best practices. Okay, I want to be like so and so, and therefore that's a strategy. That's not a strategy. And strategies are not necessarily cautious. Goal can be cautious. Strategies are not necessarily cautious. Okay, those are the three things that I look at, not strategies. So what is a strategy? So strategy requires, like I said, a goal. Okay, it requires a plan to do something, and it requires a way to measure it. Okay, and in keeping in mind the resources that you have to deliver that strategy. So important to keep all these three things. So without a strategy, without a goal, without the resources planning, without a set of activities that you want to do and how you want to do it, the how becomes a strategy. What you want to achieve becomes your goal, and how becomes a strategy. That's very key. Now, there is another thing that gets confused, and I remember this when I was working in Rediffusion YNR. Okay, there was an entire article on tactics and strategy. I said, how can that be? Because tactics is, a strategy is a little bigger. Okay, you have to have a bigger. It's not tangible really. It is a direction that you need to go. Tactics is more operationalization. Okay, more about little things that you do, which has got very tangible results. So in that sense, tactics and strategy sometimes get very confused, especially when it comes to sales orientation. Okay, tactics and strategy becomes very, very confusing in not in B2B only, but in B2C as well. So when you're doing a promotion for one plus one free, okay, then is it a tactic or is it a strategy? And how you define it and how you execute and what is the role behind it is what makes a lot of difference. So let me give you an example of not tactics versus strategy, but how I would look at a goal versus objective versus a strategy. So for example, one of my clients is ISKCON Dwarka. Okay, ISKCON Dwarka is a religious organization. Okay, it's a very interesting organization. We have been working on it for 2.5 years now. Okay, and the mandate that was given to us is we have to raise 150 crores to build the temple. Okay, so when we started working on it, we realized that, so the objective is clear, 150 crores in 5 years to build the temple. Very clear. We in our initial analysis, we realized that ISKCON Dwarka nobody knows about. It's been in existence for 5 or 7 years before we got involved. Yet nobody in Dwarka or in our possible catchment area has ever heard about thing called ISKCON Dwarka. So after a lot of thought, we came up with a strategy. Our strategy is 4 steps. We create awareness, we create engagement, we create footfalls, and then do the conversion. And when we have enough footfalls and followings in online space, we do conversion online as well. Okay, so it was very so how do we then roll it out as a strategy? So we converted every occasion in the Vaishnav calendar into an event. So whether it was Holi or Janmashtami, which was more obvious, or a monsoon festival, which was not so obvious, okay, we created an event, created it to be exciting so that people, and we created quizzes and online interactions for driving people's engagement and getting them to the temple. So from 1,300 regular donors, we went to 13,500 donors in the end of the first year, and we came up to 26,000 odd at the end of last year. So in that sense, creating that strategy of awareness, engagement, footfalls, and conversion has worked for us. So
you just get 10x and 2x, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is of course ISKCON. I'll give you an example of MasterCard. So I launched Maestro MasterCard in Maestro, which was a debit card in India. Okay, and that was way back in 2003, 4, 5, around that time. And the first thing we would say is, who is the target audience? Our goal is to launch it. We had to have X number of figures. And it had existed in couple of, so Citibank had a Maestro card. Nobody else really had a Maestro card. And we were signing on banks. I was head of marketing at MasterCard. We were signing on banks. So those are our alliances. And we had to get people to use it and convert it. So our objective was to increase usage of MasterCard in Maestro, in the debit card. Now, we realized that we had a disadvantage versus Visa. So Visa had at that point of time no PIN, and MasterCard Maestro had a PIN. So if you don't have a PIN working, and if your ATM does not enable a PIN, you can't use Maestro. Okay, so it was easier to use Visa. In addition to that, not enough people knew the difference between a debit card and a credit card. At that point of time, it was only a credit card which was mostly available, and a debit card was given as part of your account. Okay, so the usage of a debit card was very, very limited. Our analysis we figured out is, now asking a person who has got a newly minted debit card, who has never used a debit card, okay, asking them to come, start using it in the shop is going to be difficult. So our strategy became, let's not talk to them. Let us talk to people who are taking the debit card to the ATM, and the ATM they're withdrawing cash, and then they're using the cash to buy instead of using the debit card straight at the point of sale. So our strategy focused our activity on educating, of course, banks, that's our alliances, educating people in shops, etc., etc. A key element was people standing besides ATMs with a guidance calendar to tell them how to use it. Instead of coming here, spending 50 rupees or 60 rupees, they doing a diversion in your current path, you go straight and use it at the shop. It was amazing. We had 300% increase more than what we had decided to do. It was a mind-blowing experience. So this strategy actually is a key part of everything, every success that you can or cannot expect. Important to understand what is there and therefore the strategy. The tactics
Absolutely.
wouldn't have made it happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, please.
I remember, Lira, when I was at Accenture and during one of the, you know, leadership meet, the chief strategy officer of Accenture Global or Accenture Worldwide, he said, I'll put strategy very simplistically, though it is the most misused word. Strategy is to achieve X results with given Y resources.
Yeah.
Okay. And I could relate that what you are referring to, or the examples that you gave, so that people can relate to it better, actually refers to how you can achieve X results with Y resources. The how part is the strategy. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ira. Samir, moving on to you. What are the key ingredients of a successful marketing strategy?
All right. Yeah. So I was just wondering while Lira was speaking, what is that differential that I should really call out, ingredients of a successful marketing strategy. But she came up with ISKCON example. She came up with Mastro example. And if you're listening to this, I think you would have got by now what is that she did as a part of the successful marketing strategy, right? Just recollect what she said. And I think I don't need to speak as well. But now, obviously, Anand has called me to speak, so I'll still speak and kind of repeat what Lira has actually spoken. I will start with, I'll not put a lot of theory in this. Obviously, there's so many books which talks about difference between strategy and tactics. What is strategy? Elements of just Google elements of successful marketing strategy, and you'll get millions of hits on Google itself, right? But let me put it from a context of B2B industry, right? Because B2C is something which you can all relate to. But when it comes to B2B, the choices become slightly narrowed, not even slightly, I think I would say, pretty narrowed. And you have to be more deep in order to really understand if you want to do alliances, if you want to do partnerships, and what should be the element of strategy. So I'll start with what you should not do as an element. What is that element that should not be the part of your overall marketing strategy? One is you should know the difference between strategy and planning. A lot of organizations, especially B2B organizations, actually have aspirations put in the form of PPTs, right? Put in the form of emails or Word documents. These are usually plans, which you aspire to do. That's actually not strategy. Strategy is more, again, to Lira's point. I'll be referring to Lira's point very often, but to Lira's point, right? How to grow the revenue, how to grow donors from one number to the other number, right? Because the whole, think of it as a part of pyramid. So once you decide your strategy, your whole narrative has to actually change, and it actually impacts the middle layer, it impacts the bottom layer, and it impacts your margin as well, right? So you have to understand the difference between strategy and planning, or strategy and tactics. That's number one. The element should not have this. The second one is you should ensure that there is enough shared outlook. When I say shared outlook as a part of your marketing strategy, you need to have your marketeers, your sellers, etc., especially your own team. Let's say if you're designing a marketing strategy, the marketing function should also share the same outlook. That's number two. The third point is there should be an element of collaboration. Obviously, you can't sit within the marketing domain and think that you're kind of designing a marketing strategy without CFO knowing, right? Because CFO is the one who's going to, in a B2B context, is the one who's going to release the funds, release the budgets for you, right? And fourthly, you need to amplify it. While I've amplified within the organization, because a lot of times, especially if you are a multinational B2B organization, there are so many units within your organization who are actually working in silos, right? Classic case. I'm not going to say IBM, because IBM, the level of integration is pretty high, but I've seen other MNCs as well, where the one department does not know what the other department is actually doing, right? Now, having said this, I'll take a step back, because Anand has actually asked me what are the elements of a good marketing, strategy, right? I'll start with what I've learned in MBA way long back. Okay, when I was much more thinner, when I had much more hair, on my head actually, and those are the 4 P's, right? Lira, the 4 P's is something that everybody is taught, right? Price, praise, product, promotion, etc. So obviously, if you're designing a strategy, whether it's a B2C strategy or a B2B strategies, you need to know, you need to know what your market is. Where are you going to, right? What's the motivation of your prospects or potential customers? What motivate them? That's number one. The second thing that you need to look into is your product differential. How different is your product? Is there already an existing product in that particular market? The third one is, what's the price? It's very important. If Reliance is a classic example, right? How are you going to actually make people habituated towards your product? And when they get used to it, you always have that upper hand or advantage to kind of play around with your pricing a bit. A lot of telecom companies do that currently as well. I mean, you can still do that in a B2C context, but in a B2B context, it's slightly different. I'll come to that as well. The fourth one is, never underestimate your competition, because most of the times, and this is a very startup kind of a thing, right? And Lira, who knows better than Lira actually, when you start, you think that you have potential advantage. Your offering, your solution, your product, your thought process is the best. And that's what's keeping you motivated. That's not necessarily the ground reality, as well. So some of these elements, and then distribution network. Everybody forgets about distribution network, but in this age and era, digital, we've all gone through the unfortunate COVID phase. The way even B2C, B2B organizations are going to the market or designing their, GTM plans or strategy are way different from how the B2B organizations were designing their strategy, let's say, 18 months back or 24 months back, right? So you have to understand the cost, you have to understand the time to market, all of that in your distribution network as well. So that's the basic fundamental. And I'm sure if you're listening, you would say, what is new in that? We already know that. This is commonsensical. Yes, this is commonsensical because this is what is the fundamental. Now I'll shift this to a little more complex thing. What is the element of a successful marketing strategy? And I'll take classic IBM example, because IBM reinvents itself every 6 months, not even an year, every 6 months. But the underlying factor within IBM marketing is essentially the same, which is starts with brand. Why do we exist? Why does IBM exist, right? That's very important. You really need to understand what's the value you're going to give, right? Then after that, you need to really look at what are the big bets you're going to, invest, disproportionately, align your big bets. That's what you're going to offer to, to prospects, to clients, etc. Once you've decided on your big bets, the third point is, what's the blueprint? You've been talking about your big bets. I'm going to go cognitive. I'm going to go AI. Everybody is talking about data is the new currency, right? Every B2B organization is talking about data is the new currency. Good. You have a big bet that you're going to invest all your marketing dollars in ensuring there is sufficient air cover around data as a currency, for example, right? Then after that, how are you going to design your narrative? That's a blueprint. Once your blueprint is set, you then start allocating your marketing, you start allocating your dollars. I won't even say marketing dollars. You start allocating your dollars, and that's where marketing comes into the picture, right? Do we need to do enough awareness? Do we need to do, how do we kind of deal with those those prospects or clients who are already mature enough, they understand technology. How do we kind of deal with them? Last is it's brand, why do you exist? Then big bets, then narrative, then marketing plan, and then obviously sales play. Everything has to be sold. We are all here, all organizations actually exist because we are supposed to make money, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what boils down to sales play. What are the sales play? What is that script, for example? I'll make it to that level. What is that script that you can give to sellers for them to pick up the phone and not necessarily do cold calling? I mean, B2B organizations hardly do cold calling. We actually do vetted calling, basically qualified calling. So there's obviously, we use the term warmed up clients because the clients would have attended a webinar, or a prospect would have attended a webinar or downloaded a white paper, etc., etc. But how do you pick up the phone and understand that the prospect is band qualified? I mean, band is a word. If you're not aware, it is, someone who has a budget, authority, timeline,
that all
all
comes
of that.
a part of tactics, I think, suppose, Samir, right?
Correct.
So tactical decisions or
So I'll
steps
end
that
it up. Absolutely, Anand. And I'll end it up. I know I'm getting your cue as well. So I'll end it up with 3 points, right? If you want to design your strategy, one is you need to really define what your destination is, right? So if you are going to increase the wallet share this year, then that means you don't need to acquire new customers. You need to focus on your existing set of clients, right? That's your destination. Then obviously your orientation. How are you actually collaborating with CFOs? How are you collaborating with product? How are you collaborating with sales? And then it comes to the last layer is your functional coordinates. Functional coordinates essentially means, whether to achieve this, do I need to do ABM, account-based marketing? Whether do I need to reskill my practitioners? Do I need to have a new metrics in place? All of that is what you need to kind of behave. So it boils down to those 3 levels, without going into too much detail.
Thank you. Because I like the structured response that you gave, Samir. Okay, because then people are able to take their notes and relate it later as well. Okay, so we had one question for Vaishali, who's not there, and I'll try to start with answering that, and then perhaps Lira, you can add on. Okay. The question for Vaishali we had parked was how one needs to script a go-to-market strategy involving partners and alliances. Okay. And then I have a follow-up question, that is, what is the mantra behind making the alliances program a win-win for all? So more or less both are same. Okay. So while creating a go-to-market strategy involving partners and alliances, okay, when I was part of Aramco Systems, which is an ERP company, that's what I was asked or tasked to do. Okay, to create a go-to-market strategy involving partners and alliances, to make it from scratch. See, perhaps Samir and Lira, whatever is occurring to us as very obvious might not be so obvious to many team members because they are younger, they are quite fresh, right? So it's always good to go back and refresh. So what I saw or what I learned was it's always imperative. At the same point of time, it's always beneficial if you ask the why question. Okay, I'm not getting into 5 whys, but I'm saying understand why it is getting done. Okay, so if I structure my response just like Samir did, for example, if I say, what are we looking for? You are making partners and alliances for what? To achieve what? Okay, you are making it for you are looking for market makers or market takers. So no partner or alliance will be a market maker. Nobody would make a market for you. You need to create the market. They will be market takers. Once, and I'm referring more of from IT perspective, hardware and software marketing perspective. Okay, so nobody would tie up with you and open up a virgin territory for you. That's market entry strategy. That's not go-to market strategy. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, why channel partner would go with let's say me? and why not my competition? So we also know it with them, right? What's in it for me? So we need to very clearly articulate or clearly understand as to what is the ROI or what is the WIFM for a partner to go with you versus your competition. And third and last, investment in partnership. How one needs to script a go-to-market strategy? The answer is look at it as an investment, as if you are launching a startup wherein you need to invest in it for some time and then you break even, right? If you expect output from, let's say, month one, I've not said day zero, so you are setting your partnership program for failure. Then be it the marketing stuff or be it rest of the stuff. Marketing forms one very important aspect of partnership alliances because that's where you go to the market together. And last but not the least, make things customized. You know, I always refer to, I was very gung ho about, uh, if you guys remember, long back, almost 25 years back, we had this Rashtriya Saksharta Mission, right? National Literacy Program. Okay. I was very gung ho, and I used to go to faraway schools and teach them people, mid-aged ladies and old age people. Okay, all different sort of people, right? Crowds and all. Now, what we realized was that the Rashtriya Saksharta Mission was still okay at that point of time. Okay, because 25 years down the line, or in the history, still people were not that much literate. Okay, and to make huge campaigns saying National Literacy Mission or Indian Literacy Mission, people won't even know what is it for, right? Neither the people who are learners, they would be motivated, they won't even understand ABC of anything, nor the people who we are targeting that, you should, one person should teach one person. There were many people in the villages who knew Hindi, but because national literacy mission was going on, they couldn't make any heads and tails out of it as what it is. Right. So make it customizable, make it relevant to the market that you are going, that the GTM is targeting. Lira, please add whatever I missed out.
I just wanted to start with saying that you started saying alliances and partnerships and then went into channel partners. So I think there's a little bit of a distinction in that one. So I would like to start with alliances and partnerships because to me, in an ideal world, every company or every person would have all the resources and all the thinking, everything that they wanted to do, they'd be able to do it on their own. But in the real world, only few people have, no, I would say everybody has strengths and weaknesses and everybody needs a helping hand. And that's why alliance and partnerships exist. Channel partners I'll deal with separately. Okay. So the way I look at it is whether it is a corporate in the technology space or it is in the FMCG space, the alliance and partnerships still exist. Okay, you talked about technology, I'm talking about non-technology. So, for example, I do not know whether to call it partnership or not, but Godrej Soaps is the leading manufacturer of soaps for all players in the country, even for Hindustan Lever. So for years, Hindustan Lever soaps are manufactured by Godrej, but marketed by Hindustan Lever. If you see any Hindustan Lever soap, especially the old ones, you will see that manufactured by and marketed by. Okay, so in that sense, partnerships go beyond selling, go into manufacturing, go into different all kinds of relationships. What I don't have, somebody else should provide, and what they have, I should provide. So then only it works out to be an equal relationship. Then only the alliance and the partnership works. There has to be a give and take, and channel partners I'm treating separately because otherwise it won't work. Yeah. So when you are looking at partners, they are individually good at something. Yeah.
Channel partners, I'll just interrupt here, sorry, Lira. Channel partners is a subset of the overall partner and alliances ecosystem. Yeah.
I know. So
So
that's why I
for the
said
betterment of
but it's slightly
audience.
different.
Sure.
It's slightly different. So
Yeah.
individually, it's like, why do mergers work sometimes and don't work? They work only because each of them has some individual strengths. Combinedly, they are looking at something much bigger than both of them. Okay. So in an alliance or a partnership, what they start off with is a very clean objective. We should do this, we should do this, we should do this. But when it comes to practice, what you were saying, they start looking at not the long term vision that they're seeing for themselves, but at the short term vision of whether the productivity or the sales are not coming in the first month or things like that. So that to me is the key problem in the way we go about looking at alliances and relations and partnerships. If there's a strategy as to why you're coming together, and it has to be articulated across the board, across all points. And that's why whenever there is a takeover or a merger in the overall broad sense, there are workshops so that people can come together. I remember when Lakshmi Mittal took over another company, I've forgotten, in UK. Okay, they had this major webinar, okay, where they called every single person in, and they had workshops cascading in every city, every office, so that they could all work together. Okay, so it's not so.
Absolutely. I'll
Yeah.
just add on to it, Lira. I mean,
Hmm.
um, just to that point, and I had to really interrupt because I thought I will not let that thought process go. When you speak
Hmm.
about from an alliances perspective, right, and then you
Hmm.
brought in the merger standpoint as well, right? Integration is very, very important. Change
Hmm.
management is very, very important, right? I mean, it's not
Hmm.
easy. I mean, and who
Hmm.
knows is better than, I mean, IBM had Red Hat, we acquired Red Hat in a way,
Hmm.
right? I mean, earlier Red Hat was an alliance partner, then Red Hat, one of the world's biggest open software, right? I mean,
Hmm.
so we established a whole unit called as Synergy, basically to look
Hmm.
into the change management, to look into the integration, the education, the assimilation, all of that essentially is going. And then obviously, and we have a defined time process, of assimilation of Red Hat into IBM. Red Hat actually exists as a separate, as an independent entity in that way. Still, I mean, if you Google Red Hat, you'll still find Red Hat as a separate web page, separate offerings. Some of the offerings of Red Hat actually compete with IBM's offering, even though we have acquired Red Hat. So it's a
Hmm.
slow process. It depends on which organization we are talking about. But yeah, good point. I just wanted to kind of highlight this point as well.
Both Anand and I have lived through the Tech Mahindra takeover of Satyam. So, yeah, we have lived through that. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. But, mergers are just one part of the overall alliance and partnerships. Okay. So, therefore, in that sense, let's not be skewed by only mergers. It's about finding the right reason for coming together and therefore being able to evaluate why and what all. And in fact, one of the things that most people forget, they start with thinking that it is a right business arrangement. It's about matrices. It's about coming together. It's about systems and processes. Actually, it's not that. It is actually the right relationships. If you can get the right people to work with each other, with irrespective of whichever, whether it's a partner or an alliance or a merger of any kind of definition, or even a channel partner, then they'll work together because nobody can do everything anyways. So the only way to work it is if relationships can work. It means looking at matrices on a slightly longer term perspective rather than the short term of 1 month and 2 months and 3 months. And maybe part of your planning should be about what should you expect, so that it's easier for the team to do that. And also not just looking at opposite side but looking at internal, like you said, you should be looking at them or whoever they are as your customer. You should also be looking at your internal team as a customer because they have to buy into the alliance. They have to buy. So I have been in advertising for many years. Okay. So a lot of clients, so I worked in gray advertising for many years, and a lot of clients have been with gray for 10, 15, 20 years, like Pantene, like uh, Febreze. A lot of clients have been with them. Okay, like Pringles. I don't know. Pringles has now moved, but a lot of them. It is less of a customer and client relationship and more a partnership. There are joint commissions. They know what is happening. They are discussing about the future of the branch together. It's a very different thing. So it goes beyond the obvious. Of course, you need to make business sense, but it goes beyond just the numbers. So to me, that is key, whether it's a channel partnership, whether it's a merger, demerger, or any kind of partnership or alliance.
Let me flip the question, Samir. Okay. Why partnerships or license program, marketing programs fail? Or should we put it this way as to what can we do to avoid a program failing? Over to you, Samir.
That's a pretty good question, Anand. Actually, if you look at it this way, right? Most of the alliances, and I'm again to Lira's point, I'm not talking about channel partners at the moment because channel partners share a different vision altogether. But if you look at from an alliance perspective, and I'm excluding mergers here at completely, right? So if I just look at from a partnership or an alliance perspective, it's a very conscious, thoughtful decision-making process, right? I mean, you have thought about it at a leadership level, at an organizational level, you have planned about it, and you sincerely want to collaborate. That's the whole premise of having a partnership or having an alliance, right? Now, flip these three things, that leads to failure, actually, right? So if I were to break it down into points, and I really like to put things in points, so, the first point is lack of shared vision, right? I mean, you collaborated, yes, there was a commitment, but then obviously leadership changes, there are other geographical changes, which you may not have control upon, may also result in a lack of, I would say, shared vision. There could be, I've seen instances without naming where, miscommunication has actually led to breakage of alliances, right? That's, so obviously you need to have that shared vision as well, right? The second thing I think is investment. I would talk in the form of over investment or under investment, right? And any of that would essentially lead to basically failure of alliances. I mean, there are so many examples, but let me put it this way. I've been trying to reduce weight. In COVID, you go through Facebook and you find people, somebody learning guitar, somebody, reducing weight, somebody learning how to cook, etc. So I got a little bit jealous and I said, I also need to do something productive, and I started to reduce weight. I mean, at least I started to aim towards reducing weight, but I could not actually. I'm still trying to do that. But what I've seen is what has actually worked with people is when they actually see results, right? When you start seeing a little bit of your results, you start getting motivated. So you actually you start investing more time in doing things which may have resulted in reducing weight, right? Or you may start investing in certain stocks where you see actually there is a potential return that would come, or return that's actually coming in as well, right? So it's an investment. Now, how much of investment has to be made? It has to, although it's decided, like again, a pyramid at a strategic level, but it then boils down to how much of commitment in terms of investment are the two organizations coming together planning to make, as well as investment of, I hate to use the word resources, but commitment of resources across both the organizational level. Or you can replace the word resources with practitioners, because we are talking about living beings, right? Here in this case, right? So practitioners. So that actually, an imbalance obviously may lead to shrinkage or breakage of the alliance partnership as well. It's tricky. I mean, we have been talking about how IBM has an alliance with Apple. Nobody would have thought, because we were competing at least in North America market. But then we thought, let's leverage the value. And Lira spoke about the value, right? I mean, each one of them actually have their own values, and they synergize on these values. And IBM Apple had this product offerings, right? And the whole ecosystem that Apple actually creates. So you have a cell phone, you try to get an AirPod. You have an AirPod, you try to get an iPad or a laptop as well, right? So they try to create an ecosystem. And then obviously we are into space which provides security, enterprise security. We are into space, which provides AI. There's so much of synergy that we thought we could provide by having an alliance with Apple, right? Just as an example, right? Which worked, right? Which did not work. The third point could be poor governance, because there is an absence of governance, there is an absence of accountability, or there is an absence of having hard metrics as well, right? Could also lead to a strain in alliance partnership. The fourth and fifth are more or less the same. Lack of, I would say, lack of trust, lack of adaptability. Lack of adaptability. I can still take those because it's in media. Cisco partnership. Cisco has actually partnered with whatnot, right? But we all know Cisco's partnership failure with Motorola and Ericsson, for example, right? They were not, they couldn't adopt. But then Cisco's partnership with Microsoft, they have actually adapted the market well, and that has actually worked. So, these are some of the reasons which essentially lead to a little bit of strain in, I would say the partnerships or alliances. It's slightly tricky, but obviously it all boils down to the vision and how much of openness and fairness and transparency and investment are we planning to essentially make, obviously with the time frame in mind.
No, but thanks a lot, Samir. Very
If I
valid
may
point.
add, Anand, I just want to
Yeah,
add,
I
one of
knew
the
she
key
would
things
add.
that is coming through, I know, it's just one of the key things that is coming through overall is there's a question of trust.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether it's seniority, whether it is at different levels, the trust, the vision, everything all depends on the trust. And therefore, going in there with all your, with all your armor in doesn't work. If you have an alliance and you have a partnership and you both of you want to make it work, that will work. And then you have find a way of going around each of the issues that we talked about. So the amount of trust is extremely important. The relationship between the two management, bodies is extremely critical. Without that,
very
you shouldn't even broach into this topic.
true.
Because mathematically,
Very
whatever works, it's like a marriage. Mathematically, it can be all, 36, whatever number of qualities are matching, but man,
true.
they just don't work out.
Don't go to mathematics, Lira, because we just had a Formula One mathematics quiz. I hope
Yeah.
you know what I'm referring to.
No.
Okay, okay. I'll let you know. Nevertheless, Lira, my next question to you, perhaps the last question, unless there is
Hmm.
any other question from audience. How technology can augment or support the go-to-market efforts?
Oh my God, this is like perfect for Sabir, but let me give it a go. So I've seen technology evolve across 25 odd years in my work experience. So earlier, so some of the things that has happened because of technology per se, which I think all of us are quite aware of, is the dynamism in communication. Okay, the speed at which we can talk to each other, speed at which we can get information, the speed at which we can execute stuff, all that is only happening because of technology. The one thing that we talk about digital and therefore getting through to people, profiling people, data, insights, all of that. Okay, that's like a given. I don't want to talk about that. That Samir will catch up with. Okay, what I want to talk about is the fact that in all this, what is missing is what people don't see is the behind the scenes, the collaborative nature of technology. Okay, which is what we work with, whether it is a thing called Photoshop or it is a thing, any marketing software. The collaborative nature of the workflow is very essential and which creates better teams, better things to work out. Okay, whether or even workflow tools like Jira, what is that, Trello, Asana, all of these apps, all of these, the workflow management, okay, and the collaborative nature of technology is actually the reason why technology works for me. I mean, the others are, of course, that is like a given, okay, and you move from radio and print to TV and the internet. So I'm not
Social
getting into that. That's a given, okay, but it is, if people can talk to each other, okay, and they can find ways to work with each other. It's almost like sharing a screen. In the COVID times, it's been a sure test of it. So I'm a small outfit right now. We've worked in big companies, but right now, so we have actually share screens. We have subscriptions which are collaborative. Okay, software which are collaborative, where all our communication is shared, stored on the cloud. Everything is accessible by everybody. This is what is the key. This creates, this gives you a 10x result, okay, and minus 10x effort in just going through, getting your plans through. I remember when we had to send artworks, okay, artwork for printing. We had to send artworks physically in a CD, okay, to the printer before 12 o'clock in the night in Bombay, okay, because all the printers would start at 12 when the day ends, so they would catch the latest news, and by 12 CD has to reach the printer. So we had to keep in mind it'll take 2 hours to go from Worli to wherever the printers are and be able to give it to them. And then of course we moved to just the what do you call it, the file being sent on the net. Now we don't even have to do that. We have to just do it put it on the cloud, and
Dropbox.
yeah. And so to me, that is the result of technology.
I think yes, you're right. This omni-channel experience of any promotion that is getting done, right? With the advent of social and all, real-time analytics also chipping in, wherein you are understanding as, oh, this promotion is not going the right direction. Let me take it down. So the reaction to turnaround times have drastically reduced. The results before even the question paper is leaked out. When I say question paper, I mean to say the promotion is done, right? Which is what is trending, instantaneously.
In fact,
Absolutely.
I would, we are looking at, we were just evaluating certain AI content writers. Okay, I'm telling you, it's like, it's driving me nuts. Okay, why do we need an AI content writer? Okay, because there's so much content to be created, but the quality of the content still is dependent on the people. So we cannot let technology scare us away, but be able to use technology in the best way possible. And AI coming is scary. Okay, that's all I can say.
It is. It is a risk as well, Lira. Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll park it for a different discussion
For
altogether.
another day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a major risk.
And do
Samir,
call me, Lira, for that, because I have a different opinion on that.
Don't worry, I have many opinions on that. I'm right now evaluating Watson, so yeah.
Oh, that's
All
good.
yours.
That's great.
Yeah.
that's IBM Watson. Samir, with
Yeah.
alliances,
Yeah.
can you share any other pointer or either, because we are almost on the top of the hour, any other pointer with the audience, for example, how one can leverage each other's marketing capabilities and so on and so forth. Anything else that you want to cover?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Anand. Just a couple of few pointers. By now, everybody would have understood, especially with Lira's point that, alliances are synergistic in nature, right? It could be a strategic marketing alliance, right? It could be a supply chain alliance, for example. One is the producer of good, the other is actually the transporter or the distributor of goods, right? The third could be an integrated. You talk about Uber and Spotify, right? Integrated. And in India we have so many examples of integrated partnerships. Then you have technology partnerships and you have financial partnerships. You have some of the PwC doing your financial audits, etc. Right? Technology, because I'm belong to the technology industry, and I would want to spend like 1 or 2 minutes in that. Is an example of IBM and Ernst and Young, right? EY and IBM have alliances with a number of companies. I spoke about Apple, and then obviously Cisco and etc. And then obviously SAP, and I'm talking about EY here, right? Now, both of the organizations essentially have their own specializations, right? Now, IBM brings in the Watson capability, the cognitive capability, the infrastructure capability, open source with Red Hat coming in, hybrid cloud capability, etc. But what is the capability that E&Y brings on the table. That's the consulting capability and the industry capability. Like they're into tax, they're into HR, they're into income, they're across various industries. They have consultants who have dealt with IBM products for way too long, and they know their clients, right? And they're also working with their clients to transform. Transform is again like strategy. Transformation is again a very, very commonly used, I won't say abused word, but very, very commonly used word, because all the clients are, at least the enterprise clients are talking about transformation, making that leap, especially with COVID, right? I mean, which has shortened the cycle to essentially transform. They want to go digital. They want to change the way their budgets are shrinking. So they are working with their clients to transform, and IBM has the technology provider. As a technology provider, has this advantage, right? So both of us, in a way, joined hands together to offer value to the clients of E&Y, for example, and that also, has a synergistic effect on IBM's client as well. So just wanted to kind of bring in that technology example. But there's so many symbiotic relationships that you can actually, look at and think and see, in the market currently in India, across the globe. I think the way forward is going to be alliance. That's how the industry would move forward. You talk about telecom, you talk about even automotive, rebadging. You have a car which is sold in China in a different name, and then you have that coming in India with a different name, right? Rebadging. I mean, I'm not going to take names, but so many times you see actually rebadging actually essentially happening, right? So there's so many examples, but I think as long as there is a shared value and there is an incremental value that is created for the clients, I think alliances would continue to essentially exist, especially that everybody is going into the depth of expertise with lesser and lesser budgets, right? Everybody wants to actually optimize and reach more markets, more niche markets. So obviously alliances is the way to go forward, I would say.
Thank you so much, Samir. We had an interesting session, and both of you. And though few of the questions are yet to be asked, but we are on top of the hour. With hopes and this positive note and wishes for each one of you, I'm closing this interesting discussion by once again thanking the panelists for joining us today. You all can view the webinar recording later as well and share with others on www.CXOTV.news. And stay tuned for our next Monday webinar under the series titled Marketing Monday. Friends, wish you all a great day and a great week ahead. Thank you, Lira and Samir, once again.
For more updates from CXOTV, please like and subscribe to our channel.